I never thought I'd be that guy, the one who finds out his wife's been lying to him all along. But here I am, sitting in a quiet corner of our living room, feeling like the floor underneath me is shifting. The room is dim, just the faint glow of the streetlights outside casting shadows on the walls. My hands are trembling, palms sweaty, and I keep clutching the small, crumpled piece of paper I found tucked into her purse. It's a receipt from a hotel downtown, the kind you get from a vending machine. Nothing fancy, just a few drinks, some snacks, and a night's stay. But that's not what hit me hardest. No, it's the time right around the exact moment she said she was working late. I remember her telling me she had to stay behind to finish a project that couldn't wait. She looked tense, distracted, the kind of nervous that sticks in your gut. And I believed her. I wanted to believe her. I even made her coffee that night, kissed her goodbye. She looked exhausted, but she left with her phone in her hand, acting busy as usual. I didn't suspect anything. Then how could I? She's always been clever about hiding her tracks, slipping out late, canceling plans last minute. I thought she was working extra hours or maybe just stressed out about her job. But that receipt, it was a knife to the gut because it proved she wasn't just working late. She was with him, her boss, in a hotel, during our anniversary dinner. Yeah, our anniversary, the night we'd planned for weeks. I had bought her a necklace, one she'd mentioned liking during that stupid shopping trip last month. I wanted to surprise her, make it special. Instead, I spent that night alone, staring at the ceiling, feeling the cold sting of betrayal. I remember walking into the living room, trying to hold it together, but my hands started shaking uncontrollably. The silence was deafening, except for the relentless pounding in my chest. I kept looking at the receipt, my mind racing. I remembered how she had texted me that she was stuck at the office, how she'd looked at her phone more than usual, as if she was hiding something. I even caught her red-handed once before. A few months ago, her phone buzzed nonstop when she thought I wasn't looking. I saw the name. It wasn't work, it was him, but I brushed it off then. Maybe I was naive. Maybe I didn't want to face the truth. But now that I had this evidence, everything clicked into place. The late nights, her evasiveness, the way she'd flinch whenever I brought up work. She'd been lying the entire time, and that feeling, it's worse than heartbreak. It's rage, cold and precise. I called her that night, voice trembling, trying to sound calm, but I knew I was. I wanted her to admit it, to come clean. She answered the phone, voice sweet, fake as hell. "Hey honey, how was your night?" I clenched my jaw, trying to keep it together. "You tell me, care to explain why I found this?" I held up the receipt, silence. Her breathing was quick, nervous. "You were with him in the hotel during our anniversary dinner, that's what you were doing." There was a long pause, then her voice cracked. "It's not what it looks like. I was working late, I swear." Working late. Really? I spat. My stomach clenched so tight I thought I was going to throw up. "You're lying. You lied to me about where you were, about everything. How long has this been going on?" "I didn't mean for it to happen," she whispered, her voice trembling. It just happened." That's when I realized I couldn't keep pretending, couldn't keep fooling myself. She had been sneaking around, betraying me for weeks, probably months. The trust I had was shattered, replaced by a cold fury I didn't know I possessed. I knew I couldn't just forgive her, not after this. Not after the betrayal of the century, right on our anniversary. The thought of confronting her again, of hearing her "I'm sorry," made my skin crawl. I needed a plan, something calculated, something that make her regret ever crossing that line. I didn't want her to walk away unscathed, not after what she'd done. I wanted to make her pay in a way she'd never forget. But first, I had to dig deeper. I needed more proof, more leverage, before I could even think about confronting her again. I had to be sure she understood that I wasn't just hurt, I was furious. And I was ready to fight back. All I needed was a plan, a way to turn this betrayal into her downfall, and I had one in mind. Something that would shake her to her core, but I wasn't quite ready to share that part yet. First, I had to figure out how to get her to admit everything willingly or catch her in the act again, because I wasn't just leaving this to chance anymore. I had a target, and I was about to make sure she paid the price for her lies. I spent the next few days walking around like a ghost, my mind racing but my body moving on autopilot. Every time I saw her, I felt that familiar twisting in my gut. I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. Her smile now felt like a mask, hiding something rotten underneath. I wanted to lash out, to scream at her, but I knew better. I had to be smart about this. Revenge isn't just about anger, it's about precision. I started noticing small things that I'd overlooked before. Her phone, for example. She always kept it close, but now she was unusually secretive about it. She'd lock it. When I got near, swipe away her messages or pretend to check her emails when I asked about her day. I could tell she was nervous, maybe even paranoid. The more she tried to hide, the clearer it became she was panicking because she knew I was onto her. One evening, I decided to do a little snooping. I waited until she went to bed, then grabbed her phone from the charger. I didn't want to go full-blown on her privacy, but I needed to see if there was more to uncover. I unlocked it with her thumbprint. Her recent messages were filled with flirtatious emojis and vague references to late nights and work stress. Nothing concrete yet, but I knew she was hiding more. I looked at her call log, nothing unusual there. But her emails, that's where I found some interesting stuff. There was one email thread with her boss, a series of messages that started professional but quickly turned personal. They were full of compliments, inside jokes, and whispers of, "We're working late again tonight." Reading those messages made my stomach turn. It's one thing to cheat, it's another to be so blatant about it. I felt like I was holding a burning coal in my hand. I clenched my fists so tight my knuckles went white. I put the phone back carefully, my mind spinning. I knew I had enough to confront her again, but I wanted something more, something undeniable. I wanted her to realize that I wasn't just suspicious. I was prepared. I started to plan my next move, figuring out how to trap her in the act without her realizing I was watching. A few days later, I set up a little sting. I told her I was going out with some friends, but I stayed behind, watching her from a distance. I followed her car to the hotel again, parked across the street out of sight. I saw her slip into the lobby, then take the elevator up. My stomach clenched again. This felt like the moment I'd been waiting for. I watched her go into the same room I'd seen the receipt from. She stayed there for hours, texting and giggling, occasionally looking out the window. I stayed there quiet, feeling every ounce of my anger simmering just beneath the surface. When she finally came out, she looked flushed. Perhaps from shame or guilt, or maybe from what she'd just done. I saw her glance around, probably worried I was still nearby. That's when I knew the time had come. I was ready. Back at home, I waited until she was asleep again. I printed out her emails, saved the evidence from her phone, and prepared everything I needed. I wanted her to see she had no hiding place anymore. I wanted her to feel exposed, vulnerable, and helpless for once. This wasn't just about catching her, it was about making sure she understood she was caught. In the dead silence of the night, I slipped into the bedroom and placed everything where she would find it. Her phone, the printouts of her messages, the hotel receipt. I left a note on the bed, just a simple line. "We need to talk, don't deny it anymore." I knew she'd be furious, maybe even try to spin her way out of it, but I didn't care. Let her squirm, I'd done enough hiding. The next morning, I heard her moving around. She found the evidence, her face draining of color as she looked at everything spread out before her. Her hands trembled as she picked up the note, reading my words. I stood there watching her try to process what she'd done. She finally looked up at me, tears in her eyes, voice trembling. "You found everything, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this far," she whispered. I looked at her with cold eyes. Sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't erase what you've done, but it's too late now. You betrayed me during our anniversary. You expect me to forgive that." She broke down, crying, begging. But I was past that point. I knew what I needed to do. I had everything I wanted, proof, her own words, her shame. And I was ready to put the final pieces into motion. I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to make her regret ever crossing me. Because some betrayals can't be forgiven and some scars run too deep. If you need me to keep going, just say so. That morning, after she found the evidence and broke down crying, I felt a strange calm settle over me. The rage had cooled just enough that I could think clearly. I knew I had all. I needed proof that was undeniable and her own words exposing everything. Now it was time to execute my plan. I wasn't going to leave her with just guilt and tears. No, I wanted her to understand exactly what she'd lost and that I wasn't going to be some pushover anymore. I sat down at the kitchen table, taking slow, deliberate breaths. My palms were still slick with sweat, but I forced myself to stay steady. I had a list of steps, a blueprint for how this was all going to play out. First, I needed to keep her thinking I was angry but still somewhat open to talking. That way I could control the situation. I kept my voice calm even when I spoke to her. You lied, you cheated, and I want to know everything now. Why did you do it? How long has this been going on? Her trembling lips formed words I hadn't expected. It just happened. I swear I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was stupid, I thought I could handle it. Handle it? I scoffed. You think a few meaningless texts and a hotel stay are just stupid mistakes. No, that's betrayal. You lied to me during our anniversary, your favorite night of the year. Do you even realize how much you've hurt me? She looked away, tears still streaming down her face. I love you, I really do. I don't know why I did it. I was stupid, yes, but I want to fix this. That was my cue. I reached into my pocket, pulling out my phone. I had already installed the tracking app on her phone earlier that week, just in case I needed to catch her in the act. Now I activated it. Her location immediately flashed on my screen. She was still at the hotel, just like I suspected. I had her. She was still lying, still hiding. I looked her straight in the eyes. You want to fix this? Then you're going to tell me everything, all of it, every detail. Because I've got proof that you've been lying from the start, and I'm not about to sit here and take your word for it. She hesitated, then nodded, sniffing. Okay, I'll tell you everything. That's when I revealed my plan. I told her I was interested in her excuses or her tears or her apologies. No, I wanted her to feel the full weight of what she'd done. I explained I had a friend waiting outside, someone who was going to pick her up and take her to a special place where she'd face the consequences of her actions. I wanted her to see her betrayal from the outside, to understand she wasn't just sneaking around, she was losing her dignity. Her eyes widened and she started to protest. You wouldn't. Oh, I would. I cut her off. You think I'm just going to let this slide? No, you made me a fool, and now you're going to see what that feels like. I threw her phone on the table, the screen still glowing with our location. We're done pretending, you're going to face the fallout. I had arranged everything the night before. A trusted friend, one who owed me, was stationed nearby with a simple message. Take her somewhere she can't lie anymore. Make her see the truth. That's exactly what I was about to do. I watched her pack her purse, trembling, voice barely above a whisper. Please don't do this, just talk to me, we can fix it. But I was already walking toward the door. No, we're past fixing, you had your chance. Now you get to see what your betrayal costs. I handed her the keys, which she took slowly as if they were a noose. As she left, I stayed back, waiting for her to get in the car. I watched her drive away, my stomach twisted in knots, but also a strange sense of relief. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about showing her she couldn't get away with it. About making her understand that the trust we once had was gone for good. Once she was gone, I made a quick call to my friend. She's on her way. Just make sure she gets there, and she understands she's not coming back so easily. And that's when I started to feel the real weight of what I'd done. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about ending something that had been bleeding me dry. I knew, without a doubt, that this was the beginning of the end. Whatever came next, I was finally taking back control. Do you want me to continue? I watched her drive away, her figure shrinking into the distance, and a strange mixture of relief and emptiness settled over me. It was like finally exhaling after holding my breath for too long. I stayed rooted in the doorway, staring at the empty space where she'd just been. My legs felt like rubber, heart pounding so loudly I thought the neighbors could hear it. I had done it. I'd set everything into motion. Now all that was left was to wait and see how she'd react. I knew she would be furious, embarrassed, probably begging for mercy once she realized she was cornered, but I didn't care. I wasn't interested in her apologies anymore. What I wanted was for her to fully understand that what she'd done had consequences. No more hiding, no more lies. This was her moment of reckoning. I went inside, poured myself a glass of whiskey, and sat on the couch. The room was silent except for the ticking of the clock. I kept checking my phone, waiting for the first sign of her, any message, any call, something to tell me she was starting to crack. I was prepared for hours of silence, maybe even days of her silence, but I knew she wouldn't be able to resist trying to reach out. Not when she realized she had no control anymore. Finally, my phone buzzed. I saw her name flash on the screen. My stomach sank. I hesitated, then answered. "Please just listen," she said immediately, her voice cracking. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to get this bad. I don't want to lose everything." I took a deep breath, voice cold but controlled. "You should have thought of that before you lied to me, before you cheated during our anniversary. You had your chance to be honest. You chose to hide instead. Now it's too late. Please," she begged, "just give me one more chance. I'll do anything. I love you." "No, you don't," I snapped. "Love isn't about sneaking off to hotels with your boss. It's about honesty. And you threw that away for what? A few meaningless nights, some stupid thrill. You're not getting a second chance, not after all the lies and betrayal." "You're done," she sobbed now, voice thick with tears. "I know I messed up. I swear I do. But I want to make it right. Just tell me what you want. I'll do it." I clenched my fists, feeling the rage bubble up again. "You want to make it right? Fine. You're going to tell him to stay away. You're going to cut all contact. And then you're going to stay away from me. I don't want to see or hear from you again, ever." There was a long pause, her breath hitching. "But what if I still love you?" "Love is what you betrayed," I said sharply. "Love doesn't cheat, doesn't lie, doesn't pretend everything's fine when it's not. You lost that right. Now you're just a woman who made her choices, and I've made mine." I hung up, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and emptiness. It was done. I had told her exactly where she stood. But the ache was still there, deep, raw, like a wound that refused to heal. I knew she'd try to worm her way back in, to say she was sorry again, to beg for forgiveness. But I also knew I'd never trust her again. I glanced at my phone one more time. A new message flickered on the screen. It was from her, short, desperate, almost pleading. I looked at it and didn't bother reading. I pressed delete, then threw the phone across the room. It felt good, so good, to take control, to push her out of my life completely. Now I just had to wait for her next move. I was ready for whatever came next, because I'd already won the first battle. The rest, that was just cleanup. And I was going to make damn sure she paid the price for crossing me. I sat back, took a long drink, and stared at the empty doorway. I knew she'd come crawling back sooner or later. But this time I'd be the one walking away victorious. The trust was shattered. The betrayal was done. And from now on I was taking my life back on my terms. If you want me to keep going, just say so. A few days passed and the house stayed quiet, almost too quiet. I kept busy, pretending everything was normal, but inside I was just waiting. Waiting for her to make her move, waiting to see if she'd try to crawl back or just accept the damage she'd done. Honestly, I was sure which I preferred. Part of me wanted her to beg, to grovel, to prove she was truly sorry. The other part just wanted to be done with it all, cutting ties and moving on. One morning I woke up to the sound of her car pulling into the driveway. My stomach lurched. I didn't know whether to feel relief or dread. I sat on the edge of the bed, listening as the door closed quietly. Then I heard footsteps, hesitant, unsure. She came into the house, eyes red, face pale. She looked at me like a lost child. "Can we talk?" I looked her straight in the eyes, my voice cold. "There's nothing left to say. You've already told me everything I need to know." She hesitated, then approached. I want to fix this. I know I screwed up, but I love you. I want to make it right, please." I shook my head slowly. "No, you don't, not really. If you did, you wouldn't have done what you did. Love isn't about sneaking around, lying, and betraying your vows. Love is honesty. And you threw that away. I don't want to hear your apologies anymore. Want you gone." She looked like she was about to cry again, but I didn't budge. Instead, I took out a small box I'd prepared. Inside were the keys to the house, the car, everything I owned that we shared. I reached out and gently placed the box in her trembling hands. "This is it," I said softly. "I want you to leave today, take what's yours, and don't come back. I don't want to see your face again, not until you're ready to be honest about what you did. Maybe then we can talk, but not now." She looked at me, eyes filled with shame and regret. "Please don't do this. I'll change. I swear I will." I stepped back, shoulders straight. "You had your chance. You blew it. This isn't just about the affair anymore. It's about respect, trust, and dignity, and you lost all three." Her voice broke as she whispered, "I never meant to hurt you. I didn't think it would go this far. Then you should have thought about that before you crossed the line. Now I want you gone, and don't come back." I turned away, feeling lighter but also emptier than I ever had before. She hesitated, then slowly started gathering her things. As she left, I watched her walk out the door, a woman defeated, clutching that box like a lifeline. I closed the door behind her, and for the first time in weeks I felt like I could breathe. That night I sat alone in the quiet house, staring at the empty space where she used to be. I was exhausted, emotionally drained, but strangely relieved. I'd taken control, finally. The betrayal had cut deep, but I'd cut it out too. I knew this wasn't the end of everything. There would be questions, regrets, maybe even tears. But I also knew I'd done what I had to do. Revenge isn't about destruction for its own sake. It's about reclaiming your dignity, about making someone understand they can't just betray and walk away without consequences. And I'd made damn sure she understood that. So here I am, alone in my house, feeling the weight lift. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know this. I won't be that guy who's taken for granted anymore. I'll rebuild stronger and wiser. And next time, I'll make sure someone else never gets the chance to betray me like this. If you want me to finish it off with the final part, let me know. The house is quiet now, almost eerily so. For the first time in a long while, I feel a sense of clarity I didn't think I'd ever find again. It's strange how betrayal can shatter everything you thought was solid, but then, somehow, you piece yourself back together. I've realized that revenge, in its purest form, isn't about hurting someone just to hurt. It's about reclaiming your dignity, about stopping the bleeding and finally taking control of your life. That day I handed her the keys, I felt a strange weight lift from my shoulders. Watching her walk out, clutching that box like it held her entire world, I knew I'd made the right choice. No amount of begging or crying could undo what she'd done. No apology would bring back the trust I'd lost. And honestly, I didn't want it to. I poured myself a drink and sat in the silence, letting the quiet settle in. It was almost surreal, this space I'd occupied for years suddenly feeling lighter, freer. I'd spent so long trying to keep everything together, pretending everything was fine, even when I knew deep down it was. Now I could finally breathe. Looking back, I realize I should have seen the red flags earlier. The little lies, the evasiveness, her secretive phone habits. But I was blinded by love and maybe a little hope that she'd come back to me. Turns out, hope doesn't mean much when someone is already gone in their heart. Still, I'm glad I caught her in time, even if it hurt like hell. As the days go on, I feel myself healing. The anger has faded into a dull ache, replaced by a kind of quiet strength. I can walk into a room now without feeling the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. I'm not perfect. I still have moments of doubt, nights where the loneliness creeps in. But I refuse to let it swallow me whole. People say revenge is a dish best served cold, and I guess they're right. I didn't do it for petty retaliation. I did it so that I could stand tall again, so she'd understand that betrayal comes with a cost. And I've come out the other side stronger than I ever thought I'd be. I know now that some relationships are beyond fixing once trust is broken, and that's okay. Sometimes the hardest choice ends up being the right one. It's not about winning or losing, it's about ending the cycle of pain and starting anew. I'm finally ready for that. So I leave this here, not as a story of vengeance for its own sake, but as a reminder, your dignity is worth fighting for. When someone crosses that line, you have every right to walk away, without regret, without looking back. Because sometimes the best revenge is simply reclaiming your peace. And that's exactly what I've done.